Welcome back to Build Neuro Ninja. So we're deep in the mind management pack and we're exploring stuckness. The brain can get itself stuck in lots of different ways, and it's because it's a really complicated organ. 86 billion neurons, lots of circuits that evolved at different times to do different things. And obviously the brain generates the mind. So if it gets itself stuck, if we get stuck in certain circuits, and information isn't flowing freely around the brain, we're feeling that, we're thinking those thoughts, we're feeling those feelings, and it can be quite intense. So today we're exploring stuckness and we're talking about getting off the ruminatory ring road, and I'll explain what I mean as we go along. So, you know that moment when you're stuck and can't stop overthinking. You go round and round and round, and often down and down and down in terms of mood. When we're stuck in that space, there's an area at the bottom of our prefrontal cortex, sort of on the edge of the forehead where the eyebrow kind of ridge is, just below there, that ventral medial prefrontal cortex, the sort of bottom and the middle bit. If you can see that blue bit, it connects directly to the emotional brain. So that's where the emotions are, and they feed directly through to that area of the brain. When we're ruminating, going around and around, over and over and over something, usually it's a kind of social situation. Perhaps we're embarrassed, perhaps we're feeling guilty, perhaps we're feeling upset. That is the place in our heads where those feelings and thoughts are generated, and we can get stuck there, particularly when we're in the sort of late teenage years. We can get stuck in that space because that whole place is being remodeled as well as the brain develops as a result of the growth and development that occurs during adolescence. So that bit of the brain is all about how am I doing? How is what's happening in the world affecting me? How did situations in the past like this affect me? What do other people think of me? How am I feeling? It's where you might feel feelings of paranoia or insecurity. Those circuits at the bottom and the middle, they're all about me in emotionally focused way, and we're thinking obsessively about ourselves. They are not 100% not about solutions. So we've got stuck in a very upsetting space. And then what can happen is, because we're right on the edge of our emotional brain there, we can experience mood congruent attentional bias. What does that mean? It basically means whatever mood we're stuck in, we then remind ourselves of all the previous times when we felt this way. So it might be we feel angry or sad, and our brain will unhelpfully remind us of all the previous times. So we can get even more stuck and feel even more low and sad in that bit of our brains. Effectively, that area of processing, it's kind of quite low down in the brain. And this is low road thinking. It's strongly flavored with emotions. It can heavily impact on our mood, and we can experience strong mood congruent emotional bias. How can we stop traveling the low road? Well, we can't actually stop that area of the brain initially responding. It's completely linked to the emotional brain, and it's where we're going to go first. If we're having an experience with emotions, that is the place where our emotions begin to skid into sort of heavily charged emotional thinking. But it's really important to understand we can't stop that process. It's part of the brain's processing architecture, but we can notice when we've got stuck in that ruminatory place. And after the initial emotional response to a setback or a difficult situation, notice that our brain has got stuck there. Rumination, that picture sums it up. It's a horrible place. Our brain isn't seeking solutions, it's just reminding itself of how difficult it currently is. And you're churning around, and it feels like you might come up with a solution, but with those circuits only, you won't come up with a solution. On the low road, it feels like we've got the weight of the world on our shoulders, and it doesn't feel like we can find a solution. And we might not feel able to talk to someone else about it, which actually makes the situation even worse. So how do we get up to the top and the sides, the dorsal lateral prefrontal cortex, where we've got solution focused thinking, where we've got empathy, compassion, and we reach out for connection? How do we get up to that bit from the low road to the high road? That area of the brain is all about solutions. It's about how can I plan my way out of this situation? What could I do? Does somebody else have some information they could share with me? It's much broader in its thinking. Action outside me. So what gets you to the high road? Well, first of all, building awareness, noticing that you've got stuck and you're ruminating, that kind of feeling of going over and over and over. Notice cognitive distortions. Now you'll remember those from previous videos. That is catastrophizing thinking, that is mind reading, that is assuming strongly biased negative thinking that isn't actually going to happen. It's the brain predicting wildly because it's worried and anxious. And we should notice the emotions that we're feeling. If we start noticing and build awareness, we can just go, hang on a minute, I'm ruminating and this isn't helpful, this state. What we can do to get to the high road is we can walk outside in nature. Walking outside in nature sounds a bit strange, but actually it opens up thinking because it opens up the circuits at the top and sides of the prefrontal cortex. Because nature is gentle and nice to look at, we can't help but the top bit of our prefrontal cortex literally opens up, and that means we've got access to those solution circuits. So that's going to lift that sense of being stuck. Connecting to others, reaching out and talking to other people you trust. Those circuits at the top and sides of the prefrontal cortex are all about connection. So you access those, you also access beginning to think about solutions. Applying cake, and I'll come to those in a second. Applying save, I'll come to that in a second. Do your rocks, you've heard me talk about the rocks a lot. Gratitude and thinking about the self-compassion, meditation and mindfulness. So let's have a quick squiz through all of those. Walking outside, I've mentioned. Walking outside opens up the circuits at the top and sides automatically the moment you're outside. That's going to lift some of that weight of the world feeling. Connecting with others, again, those circuits at the top and the sides. Cake is all about, rather than saying to yourself, this isn't fair, why do I feel like this always happens to me. Common humanity, everyone ruminates sometimes and we get stuck. The key is noticing and then seeking support. Being aware and accepting that situation has happened sometimes. Being kindly and curious about what's led to that situation. What has happened? You're feeling sad, something difficult has happened. If something difficult happened for your friend, you'd be supportive. If something difficult happens for you, even if it's something where you've made a mistake, you're often really nasty to yourself. We're often really nasty to ourselves. So it's really important to behave towards ourselves when things have gone wrong in the same way we would behave towards a friend. If a friend rang us up and said, this has happened, we wouldn't have a go at them. We'd be kind. And we'd go in search of solutions with them. And we need to apply empathy. And then save is all about self-compassion, being aware of the situation we're in, verifying what has triggered the situation, and then evaluating solutions. That again turns on those circuits in the top of our head. Doing your rocks every day will mean that you can activate your parasympathetic nervous system. That will change the sort of spaces in the brain, that will connect up different circuits, that will move you from being stuck in that low road area, that ventral medial bit of the prefrontal cortex. Gratitude and thinking of others, circuits at the top and sides of the head fire when we're being grateful and practicing empathy. So that opens up thinking. Compassion for ourselves. It's so important to be compassionate. That doesn't mean that we don't admit mistakes. That doesn't mean that we don't learn from situations, but it means that we need to make a good friend of ourselves. We need to be kind to ourselves. We need to look after ourselves like we'd look after somebody else. And we need to seek support like we would say to other people, seek support. And a good process to really help us every day is just a bit of mindfulness every day, because it begins to build the neural architecture at the front of the head, which means that you can just be a bit more aware of your thoughts and not simply sort of passive recipients of the output of your brain, but much more broad in terms of your response to what the brain's doing. So remember that change in the brain is slow, and you're going to need to practice these things for a while. So, trying them for a couple of days isn't the thing that's going to make the massive difference. Make slow, steady improvements by practice them over time. So, a few weeks before you'll see a massive difference. And if you're really feeling bleak and really struggling right now, Know that you're important, needed, required, and loved. And reach out. We can help and signpost you to the people who can help you. Um, and it's really important to understand that all feelings, however bleak and difficult, are temporary. They will pass. If you want to get in touch with us, we can obviously try and help you. And if we can't help you, we can signpost you to people that can. That's us. That's our email addresses to get in touch. Thanks for listening. There's a reminder of how to get off the ruminatory ring road. See you next time.